All right. All right. All right. We should be streaming live in the Facebook group. All right. So let me open up the chat. Cameras on so we can see your pretty faces. Set 3 listing appointments yesterday. Where are you? Is it Augustine? Augustine?
Hi, I'm Augustine. Yeah.
Augustine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what the heck?
Yeah, so I'll just introduce myself real quick. I'm a KW agent in Fort Collins, but I'm considering switching brokerages.
So tell us how you took 3 listing appointments yesterday.
Yeah, so one of them was just SOI. I got a DM from a high school friend. He owns a mobile home and then he wants to basically move up into just a single family home. And then the other two were FSBOs, just cold calling.
FSBOs.
Yeah,
Awesome. We're
it
doing
wasn't my first like contact with them, but yeah, two FSBOs and
yeah.
one SOI. Yeah.
Following up, yeah. Mark is doing our FSBO, his FSBO system today. So real quick, today's going to be on FSBO Mastery. Mark is going to sort of be the guiding force to the conversation, but I want to hear from all of you that are crushing FSBOs after we sort of present our piece to kind of layer in your goodness. That's awesome. That's a hard one to follow, but every single person get in the chat. Positive focus, one good thing that you're grateful for, that you crushed. The reason we do positive focus is that this is a tough market for a lot of agents. I think there's a lot of, self-fulfilling sort of, I think we kind of put ourselves in tough positions sometimes. But at the same time, hearing what other people are doing is really, really inspiring. And so we want to keep going, keep sharing it. So meta listing appointment this morning that started from a cold call back in July. So July to December, 12 minus 7, 5 months. 5 months. I think it's a full 90% of folks that you contact for the first time in your lead gen aren't going to earn you a commission check in the next 90 days. Very few agents actually have the lead nurture sequences in place to warm those leads up over time. So all the money, I would say 60% of the GCI I made in my business over the years, over 50% for sure was from follow-up and really tight nurture sequences. Cleaning up database, yeah, not sexy work, Anna Marie, but really valuable work. Ratified 2 of my short sale listings. Joe, have showings with my client on Saturday. Awesome. FSBOs, 20. So Ryan, 15, 20% of my business annually. So Ryan, I expect you to chime in at the end of this call with, we're going to mastermind with the folks that are doing FSBOs at a high level. So that'll be awesome. Grateful for a clearer prospecting plan schedule. Yeah, I just did I've got a free Facebook group and I did a training and I wish I could have made it sound more like more glamorous than it is, but it's like knowing where you're supposed to be on a daily basis and actually doing the thing that your calendar says and doing it 5 days a week. Non-negotiable. It's how a business scales predictably. So Justin says navigating a buyer, buying from family member, and keeping a win-win for all parties. That sounds like it could be dicey. Grateful for this coaching program, helping me to reevaluate and see what is working, what isn't. Awesome. Really good share yesterday. Shauna shared yesterday, the tendency as agents when we get a buyer or we have a listing that gets an offer or we're putting in an offer, our tendency is to give away the part of our day that we committed to do new business development. So that was the big sort of awareness and share yesterday. But that's like all the agents do that, right? And that's why it's this income roller coaster. And then if a deal falls apart, you're like, oh crap, I wish I would have honored my new business development time blocks. So that was a really good share yesterday. Not letting the market determine my mindset, 100%. And if you're not in a good, if you sort of have a tendency to kind of go with the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and the sky is falling, and agents are getting out of the business, you will end up going that direction. Like literally, your business will end up going away, and you won't be successful. To me, I always had like I don't know if anyone's heard like the buffalo analogy. I don't know if it's actually true, but buffaloes, apparently, if there's a storm, buffaloes are going to run through the storm. And if you run into the storm, you actually get through it quicker. Cows run away and they all die, so we don't want to be a cow. We want to be the buffalo. And I don't even know if it's real, but I learned it in C12. So I like it. We have buffaloes that we throw around the room. And if you're not acting like a buffalo in this room of 12 business owners for C12, someone will pick up the buffalo and they will throw it at you. So you definitely don't want to fall into that mentality. Matt went on, finishing, let's see, hold on. Tim, finishing book 5 this week of 6 books in 90 days. I think that's using the reading list from the new agent onboarding. That is awesome, dude. Tim, if you can, I could go check it out. I don't remember what they are, but type those books in the chat if you can. Because I'm sure they're good. I'm sure they're good ones that everyone needs to read, and I just don't know them offhand. So let's get them in there. So Matt went on a listing appointment yesterday, an offer out for investor past client. Awesome. Sasha just got a call from a referral who's looking to make a commercial land purchase. Hopefully it's like 10 million, Sasha, and you could take a nice vacation next year, 20 to 25 acres if it works out. First land deal. That's amazing. I only did one land deal in my entire journey in real estate. I never really understood land. Started implementing a holiday campaign via social media by reaching out to Facebook SOI. 2 happy Hanukkah posts. Awesome. Focused on engaging with personal responses to those friends and contacts who commented regardless of their religious beliefs. Received some very positive engagement. Awesome. Awesome. First week in program, got my 100 database with people I know. Starting calling people. Yeah, I always use added bomb. So video, if you guys aren't using video pretty much in every aspect of your business, it's really, really valuable. Whether it's working with clients, getting price improvements, you set an appointment with a buyer or seller, that next touch is a video, and you're just saying, hey, Jeff, this is Lars from ABC Realty. Super excited to get together with you Thursday, 4 p.m. When we get together, this is what we're going to do. And any questions in the meantime, reach out to me. Just a quick, simple touch, but it just elevates the entire client experience. All right, so here it is. The one thing, Gary Keller, the shark and the goldfish, fanatical prospecting, eat that frog, the energy breaths, and do the work. Is it called Do the Work or is it called Turning Pro? Maybe there's 2. I know Turning Pro is really good by Stephen Pressfield, or maybe it's also Do the Work. Either way, it's Do the Work. That's the book. It's Do the Work. It takes about 2 hours to read, but the message is Do the Work. All right, so awesome. If you haven't put in your positive focus, get it in the chat. And we're going to open it up. And I have, I think I reached out to Mark. What was it? Probably a month ago. I'm going to spotlight you, brother. So I met Mark in April 2007 at a Craig Proctor conference. It was me, Mark, and Matt Greco. And yeah, and at the time, you were running a really good business. You've always done really good business. I know you're sort of split in your focus now, but you're still helping agents have FSBO be a key part of their business. So take us quickly through a couple minutes on kind of your journey in real estate. How many years, how many transactions? Kind of give us the stats so people will pay attention. And then I'll just do a screen share of the document you put together. I'll drop it for everyone as well. And then as this is going along, get in the chat and add your 2 cents. And then at the end, I'll sort of pick on some people. So the goal here, and the topic is FSBO mastery. So the goal here is that I would for sure have FSBOs as part of my lead gen lever arsenal if you threw me back into production. I've also said that I would probably not love it, but I probably do open houses. So FSBO is one of those pillars that I think is really something everyone should be looking at. All right, so Mark, so give us a quick couple minute overview, and then we'll get into the meat of the training. And just appreciate you showing up today and giving us your best stuff.
No, I appreciate the opportunity here. And yeah, as you know, this is something I've been in the business a little bit over. This is my 22nd year in the business. And as far as FSBOs goes, I've just looked at my database. I've sold over 177 FSBOs
Whoa.
in my career. So I've made it, the last 3 years have been difficult because they haven't existed. But the reason I think, obviously, I'm qualified to talk on this is because I've made all the mistakes. I stumbled through it. And then I was lucky enough to actually stumble across a couple things that were just huge eye openers to me, and run into a couple people in my career that kind of changed the trajectory of how I handle the for sale by owners. So I always preface this when I talk about this by saying, you may have a different approach. I was with Keller Williams for 2 years or for 5 years actually. And I was an investor owner in 2 offices, and I was made to go to the Bold class. And if anybody here has ever been to Bold, it's a great class. But if anybody saw the YouTube short that I just shot a few weeks ago, got a little bit of hate for it, but I held up the Bold binder and it's about 4 or 5 inches thick. And I said, you guys really don't need this much information to go out and do this. This is really simple if you approach it the right way. So today, I'm going to show you my approach. Again, you may have a different approach. I don't want anybody to say, hey, I do it totally opposite than you and I have tons of success. That's awesome. There's tons of ways to do the real estate business. But the way that I approach this is not the held back way or the soft approach, but I'm going to tell you why it works. And hopefully there's a lot of people on the call that this is going to get you. If the phone weighed a ton because you just didn't want to pick it up and call your first FSBO, I'm hoping the scripts that I'm going to give you will give you that confidence to do it, because it's a total different approach. And I'm going to show you how to get the FSBO not to hang up on you and not to yell at you, which is everybody's biggest concern. So, like
Awesome.
Lars said, I met him years ago at Craig Proctor. I'll just tell this quick funny story, Lars, is when we bought Craig Proctor's coaching, they gave us 2 websites, and one was a branded site and one was unbranded. And the unbranded was a bigger piece because back then people didn't really want to click on a real estate agent's website. So when I was setting up my unbranded site, it was toggled on that it would allow me to put listings on there. And I was kind of like, why would I put listings on here? I have a branded site for my listings. And it just hit me that I could allow FSBOs to put their stuff on my website. So that ended up growing. I'll tell you the quickest version I can. That ended up growing to the point where I was making between $8,000 and $10,000 a month, charging FSBOs to put their properties on my website. And that all came to a screeching halt when the broker found out what I was doing, and he wasn't getting his piece. And then agents started to report me because I would actually give for sale by owners a sign for their lawn that said for sale by owner, but courtesy of Mark Giosa. And literally it was like a guaranteed listing every time they were ready to list because my sign was already on the lawn. I mean, I had this system rocking and rolling. I probably could have sold that system for a lot of money, but like we do a lot of things, I kind of stopped doing it after I got my wrist slapped a couple of times. I kind of went a different direction. And then I was lucky enough to somehow stumble across, before he was anybody that anybody knew, if anybody's ever heard of Haas Pratt. I was kind of down in the dumps one day. I jumped on a call that this young, vibrant kid from Texas was on, and I didn't know who he was. And I kind of sent him an email in my sorrow mood and saying, hey, you don't know me, but I was on your call and you really kind of motivated me to get my act going again. And within 30 minutes, my phone rang and it said Dallas, Texas. And I'm like, who's calling me from Texas? And the biggest Texas voice you can imagine shouts at me on the other end of the phone. This is Haas Pratt. And I was blown away that this guy called me. He invited me to a private conference that he was holding at a Keller Williams office. And I drove to it. And unfortunately enough for him, but fortunate for me, the office had to cancel the conference at the last minute. So I walked in the office and I see this guy sitting at the end of the hallway, and he looks up at me and he says, Mark. And I said, yeah, Haas. And I said, where is everybody? He said, hey, they had to cancel. I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, you and I are going to sit and have some lunch and talk real estate. And I ended up having this 2 to 3 hour one-on-one meeting with this guy who ends up being an incredible speaker now, if anybody's ever seen him speak. And the coolest part was he was in the middle of creating his listing boss system, which if I don't get anything, I'm not affiliated with Haas or anything. So Hopefully, maybe you guys look into it and buy his course or his book. It's an amazing course. It's a great book. I know Lars has purchased it before as well. And he just showed me a different way. I was already really what he did for me, because I had learned by falling on my face so many times with FSBOs. He kind of validated 90% of what I was doing and then just pushed me up to 100% with all the tips and tricks that he had. So that's kind of like my little spiel about, where I've come from, my journey here, and why FSBOs have been a big part of my business.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm going to drop the link to Haas's. He's just an incredible dude. I'm going to drop the link to his book. Highly recommend everyone read that. And it's on Amazon if I can find the link here. I'll find it in a second. So, Mark, you want me to share the screen, or you want to? I can bring up the document and kind of you roll through it. What do you think is easiest?
Yeah, whatever's easier for you. Probably easier for you to control that.
Yep. All right, let's do it. All right, let me share the screen here. And for those of you that are crushing FSBOs, we're going to add to all of this. But you have to make sure that you sold more than 177 if you're going to. No, I'm just kidding. But it has to be an active part of your business, and we do pride ourselves. That is the wrong page. That is my strategy session script, different script. All right, here. Where the heck? All right, bear with me. I know we had some tech challenges the other day too, but I promise I've got my stuff together. I must have closed it here. All right, Mark, tell a story.
Well, I can let me just talk about the basics. And for anybody that's on the call that's never called a FSBO, do we have a bunch of people that have never called one? Maybe you're intimidated to call one. You're afraid they're going to hang up on you. They're going to be mean and nasty. I want you to remember some of the basics of real estate, right? The couple things about real estate is that real estate is a process. It's not an event. Okay. You don't just wake up tomorrow or today and say, I'm just going to sell my house, right? So you have to respect the fact that this seller has gone through their process and they've decided to sell their own property. Okay. One of the things that I didn't love when I was in bold class, I didn't feel like some of the scripts just fit how I spoke. And it was a little bit more Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry. And again, no bashing to them, because they're brilliant guys and they've written many great scripts. But the script for the bold class was mostly, hey, Lars, my name's Mark over at eXp Realty. First thing that I think they do wrong is they say, how are you today? And they pause and they let you say whatever you want to say, which most of the time is, I'm not interested. But the second thing they say is, hey, I see you're selling your house by owner, and I wanted to see when you were going to hire a professional like myself to handle this property for you. I mean, literally, that's the opening line for a lot of the bold scripts. And it's just not how I've been able to get so many for sale by owners to become clients and sell their properties. So you just have to remember, sometimes they have to go through their process. That's one thing I want you to realize when you go through. So when you first call a FSBO, you want to make sure that you're just finding out what their strategy is and where they're moving and going. And I'll show you this as we go through. But Lars has this pulled up. The first things we want to do is, where do you find them? So if you're going to go for the free source, years ago, we would have 5 or 6 websites that you would go to. Most of those websites are not being utilized at all. They're kind of stale and outdated. So Zillow does post for sale by owners. You can set yourself up on a search as a customer to be emailed properties when they do come up. And obviously they do have the owners, the numbers usually very accurate on there because the seller has posted it there themselves. So we're also going to talk about a little bit later is how you get around the ones that actually say no realtors, please, right? Because a lot of sellers are actually doing that as well. Little caveat here, if you guys have a team, I would involve your team in those things. I know some teams are set up to where there are listing agents and buyer's agents. So I would set up your staff and your entire team to get bonuses if they can bring FSBO business into the office as soon as these things become more and more prevalent in the market. And then I always reward it friends and family. If you're out, I used to years ago, I don't have the time anymore, and I really don't want to do it anymore, but I used to just drive neighborhoods on my lunch and look for signs. And I know all this sounds weird for any of you that have just gotten into the business in the last couple of years, because these things just haven't been as prevalent. But trust me, when the market does fully shift, you're going to see lots of signs in yards, like in years past. So they're just things that I would do to incentivize people to give me tips on FSBOs. Obviously, if you have buyer clients too, you just educate them on, if they find it for sale by owner, they should write down the address and phone number and give it to you, and you're going to book an appointment just like any other. But if your client doesn't buy that, that's obviously another source for getting that. And then the paid sources you can use are RedX, which is they go under Vortex. That's the name of their FSBO and expired system. There's Vulcan 7 and there's Land Voice. The trouble you may find with some of these systems, obviously they're paid services. The nice thing is they do have a built-in CRM, so you can track all of your FSBO people and expired people separately. The downside is, you know, sometimes they'll give you 5 or 6 numbers for each person, and some of them may be wrong numbers or outdated information, but it does stop you from having to track things down individually one by one. So we'll just talk about making the first contact. So this is where, let me just tell you one other quick story. When I was in the bold class, we had groups of 7 or 8 at a table. And at some point, the teacher, after teaching for a couple hours or a day or so, it's a 3-day course, and they would actually tell everybody in the next 45 minutes, everybody's going to go out into the hallway or find a spot, and everybody's going to make a call. And we're going to come back in, and anybody that books an appointment's going to win a prize, and you're going to put your name up on the whiteboard. And you could see everybody turn stark white as the blood left their face, because like, oh my gosh, we're actually going to go make calls. And there was this one, we went out and called a for sale by owner, and literally 2 women came back into the class and they had tears in their eyes. And the one was sitting at my table, and I said, "What happened?" She said, "I've never been spoken to that way. That guy was the rudest guy ever." And I was laughing, and she said, "Why do you think it's funny?" I said, "Well, it's not funny that he did that to you." But I said, "Here's the thing. You guys all went out into the hallway and called probably the same for sale by owner. So he's sitting at work and his phone's blowing up, and this guy's just aggravated." But the second part of that is, guess where else you guys all failed? You all went out and said the same exact thing. So there's something, you know, if everybody knows the acronym in real estate, which is ABC, right? Always be closing. With real estate, when I taught my team how to do things, I would always say we use the ABD method, which is always be different, right? You always want to differentiate yourself in this business. If you can be different than every other agent that goes to a seller's table, I mean, if you're going to be one of 5 agents that sits down on a listing appointment and break out the same exact information and not look any different, there's a high probability that you might not get chosen for that, right? This is the same thing. If you're going to call up the for sale by owner and say the same thing that everybody else has been saying, then there's a high probability you're going to have the same outcome that they had. Now, going back to what I said, prefacing by saying there may be people here on this call that say, "Hey, I use the bold script and it works." I'm really good friends with Jeff Quinton down the shore, the Jersey Shore. He's a good friend of mine, and that guy is just dominant on the phone. And I will tell you, he will use the Mike Ferry scripts, the bold scripts, and they do it at a high level, you know. But that's just his personality. His personality is like, right at you. I don't take no for an answer. You need to list a property today. Right. And I know that's just not most people's way of presenting. So, you know, I'm giving you an alternate way to do it here. So if you see here, if I do get a voicemail, I do leave a message, but the voicemail is basically vague. And it's just, "Hey, my name is Mark. I'm calling." I don't even say with a brokerage or anything. My name is Mark, because I want to call back. If I tell them I'm a real estate agent, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to call me back. So, "Hi, my name is Mark. I'm calling about the property listed by owner. Please call me back at this number. Thank you." And then when they call back, I immediately identify myself. But again, I'm going to be different. And if you watch my main script down the bottom there, it'll say, "Hey, this is Mark from EXP. And before you say anything, Mr. Seller, I totally understand that you're selling the property by owner. I'm not calling to list your property like every other agent that has probably called you. I'm just simply calling you today to see if you could tell me a little bit more about the home so I can pass the information on to some of my potential buyers." And I'm telling you guys, if you use that script, they will not in 99.9% of the time, they will not hang up on you. You know, if you see, I call it the Eminem script. If anybody's seen the movie 8 Mile with Eminem, you know, you basically take the power away from them by saying what they probably want to say is, I said no realtors. You're the 10th realtor I've had call me today. I'm not listing the property. I've already taken that power away from them. Right. So, hey, Mr. Seller, hey, before you say anything, I totally understand you're getting lots of calls from agents. I'm not calling like they are to list your property. I'm just simply calling you today if you can see if you can tell me a little bit of information about the property so I can pass it on to my potential buyers. Okay. Same thing if I do leave a message and they do call me back. Hey, is this Mark? Yeah, you left me a message about my home. I say, hey, Lars, yep, this is Mark. I just want to let you know I am an agent with eXp Realty, but before you say anything, I'm not calling to list your property, and I'll say the same exact thing, right? When you call someone, you say, hi, my name is Mark Giosa with eXp Realty in this town, and then you say, how are you today? And you pause, it's going to give them total, you know, carte blanche to just shut you down. Say, I'm not interested. I'm not listing the property. Thanks. Click. So I'm telling you, if you can just learn that entering that opening, just memorize it and just make it your own, sound natural and sound excited when you call somebody, you're going to get through 99% of the time.
Awesome.
These are just some potential responses that you'll get back from a seller. You know, well, why would you call me if you don't want to list my property? Well, you see, I pride myself on knowing not only what is available publicly on the MLS, but also privately for sale as well. This way I can provide my buyers with the best list of properties possible. Okay. Well, do you actually have a buyer? Your answer should always be, we have lots of buyers, or I have lots of buyers. I just need to see if the home's a possible fit first. I'm sure you guys have lots of potential people out there. If you have a CRM like KV Core, like we all have access to, or another CRM that you may be using, I'm sure you have potential buyers in those systems that, and I'm sure everybody has a few buyers that they're working with, whether this house is in the right neighborhood or a right fit, not necessarily, but your answer should always be, I have lots of buyers. I just need to see if the home's possible fit first. I used to make all the wrong mistakes. When I started calling FSBOs with no training and nobody guiding me, I would call up and say, hey, Mr. Seller, my name's Mark with XYZ Realty, and I have a buyer for your property. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And once you tell them that, then that's all they focus on. Well, where's your buyer? Every time I call them, you know, what happened to your buyer? I thought you had a buyer. If you follow Haas Pratt's course, he's going to talk to you a little bit about finding out if this is somebody that you want to continue to prospect. Not every for sale by owner that you call is going to be somebody that you want to do business with. You know, a lot of them are just stuck on their price. I mean, there's a whole reason and mentality that goes behind somebody that wants to do it themselves. Some of them are just normal people that want to take on that task, and they're savvy enough to say, hey, I'm going to try this for a little while, and if I can't do it, I'm going to call a professional. And there's other people that are going to just, you know, fall on their sword. They're just ready to take this to the end. And they may not be the people you want to do business with. So I'll always ask people, hey, let me ask you, if I were to bring you a buyer, would you be willing to pay a 3% co-op? You can put whatever percentage you want in there. You can just say, would you be willing to pay a co-op? Sometimes sellers don't even know what co-op means. You know, you're going to run into all types of sellers out there. I feel like the sellers are a lot more educated today than they were years ago because of all the access they have to information. But I'm going to ask them if they're going to be willing to co-op. Haas does say that if they're not willing to co-op at all, nope, I'm not paying anybody a dime at all. He tends to take them out of his system. He's not going to waste any more time with them. You guys can make that decision whether you want to continue to prospect. Right? The next thing is you want to move on with the conversation. You want to just get them talking. Get them, the more they talk and the more questions you ask, the person that asks the questions is the one that controls the conversation. So just don't talk too much. Just ask the right questions. Get them talking about their property, talking about something they take pride in and something that's theirs. They will naturally, their defenses will slowly continue to come down during the conversation. And this is probably the biggest thing. I used to, when I used to talk about this before years ago, and I had lots of agents calling me saying, hey, how are you doing this? How are you listing this many properties? They would always say, how are you getting this many appointments? And I always want to clarify with them, hey, my appointment is not necessarily a listing appointment at first. My goal on every call, and it's often you got to kind of feel it out. It may not be the first contact, the first call, but you'll get this gut feeling when you talk to them, whether they're open to it or not. But a lot of times I'm looking for an opening for me to be able to come over and see the property. When you go see the property, your rapport with that seller is going to go up tenfold, right? And that's going to really change the game when I tell you what the real secret sauce to this that I found out years ago that's going to really take this to another level. If you meet them, it will change everything. And then there's just a couple other questions that you can ask people and what I like to ask them. I like asking what their preferred settlement date is. Sometimes they haven't even really thought about it. It shows you how unprepared they are. But sometimes they'll tell you in that answer, they'll give away sometimes their timing and motivation, whether they just put an offer on another property or whether they already closed on another property or whether their job's moving them and they need to have their home sold by X date. So, a lot of times that's a telling answer if you ask them that question. And then obviously we're going to feel if any FSBO you're going to feel out, they have to move somewhere, right? So you want to find out if they have help on the buy side. And if they don't, obviously you want to let them know that you can help them on the buy side. If they're moving out of the area, obviously we have business partners in all 50 states and in other countries. So you can help them on that end with a referral as well. If they're not willing to let you come over, you can ask them if they're doing any open houses and you can just do a pop by. And then the one question you always ask them is, again, some of the other scripts that I did not like from other courses were more of when are you going to hire an agent? When are you going to consider hiring an agent? And they really don't think in those terms. They don't want to hear those words. I mean, for sale by owner has clearly stated that they want to do something themselves, right? So the best way to word that is, let me ask you, Lars, how long do you think you'll continue to try this yourself before looking into other options? They know what other options means, but mentally, it's a different kind of question. And you're going to get answers. You're going to get answers all the time. And just the golden rule of real estate is, they're probably going to list it in half the time that they actually tell you. And this is something that this has been a point of discussion with different people. I don't like to ask them if I can follow up, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute, but I just don't want that door to be closed. I've had enough sellers respond to me that say, yeah, you can call me if you have a buyer, but other than that, we don't need to speak. So I just found in my calls that I usually don't even mention to them that I'm going to follow up. I just don't ask. I just put it in my calendar. It's going to happen anyway. And then if you get to visit the property, you can see my script for that. Hello, Mr. Seller. Hey, I'm going to be in the area today, tomorrow, whatever you want to say. When would be a good time for me to just stop by and take a quick look at the property? They ask you why you need to see the property and just say, hey, just like other properties on the market, having firsthand knowledge of the property will allow me to walk to help find a buyer faster. This is absolutely not a listing appointment. I simply want to do a 10-minute walkthrough, and I may have a few more questions while I'm there. And typically, I've had so many people just say, yeah, you know what? I'm home today. You can stop by. Or they'll tell you they're having an open house on Sunday. Stop by then. So again, remember, this is my method. I had an agent say to me a couple of weeks ago, well, I don't want to put that much effort in. Like, I don't want to be previewing properties and doing things like that. And I asked him how busy he was, and he wasn't busy at all. So I don't understand why you wouldn't put a little bit of effort into one of the pillars of your business, because it really doesn't take much time. And if you realize, as a real estate agent, you're not in the house selling business, right? You are in the people business. You just happen to sell houses. So I'm looking at this as somebody that I can help, and somebody that even if I help them sell it themselves, this person knows other people. I've had tons of referrals from for sale by owners. And I know Lars probably heard this story before. The craziest one I ever had in my career was I called this one guy every week, and he was a grumpy SOB. And I just kind of hung in there with him just for the challenge. And his name was Tony. And I get a call probably 2 months after I've been calling Tony. And this guy, Bill, calls me and Bill says, "Hey, I got your number from Tony. I'd like, my wife and I would like to sit down with you and talk about listing our property." And I couldn't place who Tony was. And I said, I'm trying to think who Tony was. He says, yeah, he's my friend. He's selling his house by owner. And right away the light bulb went off. And I'm like, man, he's a tough nut to crack there. And he says, yeah, he says, I don't have the time or the patience to try and sell it myself. But when I was over Tony's house, I was telling him that I was thinking about selling, and he handed me your card and he said, look, you got to call this guy because he bothers me every week. And that was like the other epiphany that I've had that I'll talk about in a minute. But, you know, there are tons of options here if you just try to help people, you know, get what they want. And I'm not telling you guys that you, at some point you don't look for the close. Like that's one thing I definitely want to, you know, nail down here is like, if there's an opportunity for me to close, if they're giving me all the signs like, hey, you know, if somebody said, well, I gotta move to Chicago by the end of January, I would definitely step things up and say, hey, Lars, can I be really upfront with you? Time's getting a little bit short here. We have the holidays coming up. You know, your showings haven't been that great. You haven't had any offers yet. You've been up for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You know, at what point do you think it's going to become too tight of a timeline for you to actually contact somebody like me? Right? I'm always looking for that opportunity to step it up. So don't think that my approach is just the total opposite of the stronghold approach. You're always looking for that opportunity to close. But while you're looking for that opportunity and you're waiting the seller out a little bit, you know, some sellers will take 1 week, some sellers may take 4 or 5 weeks. But it doesn't matter to me because, you know, when I was doing this at a really high level and there were lots of for sale by owners, I mean, I had 10, 15, 20 of these that I was kind of in contact every single week. So it didn't really matter to me who was ready to pop off and who wasn't. A little bit of a waiting game. The next section, we don't really have to go over it line by line, but it's usually I will send them a thank you after I visit the home. I will bring them my for sale by owner package, which I will upload for everybody. And it's really just a thank you cover letter. And it will give them some disclosures and things that they need to do, at least for our state. If your state has some documents that a seller would have to fill out, then I would give them some free blank documents. I also give them some letters and documents on staging ideas. I give them my full contractor list of painters, plumbers, carpenters, everybody like that, moving companies. And then usually for the ones I like, I will say that I put a $5 gift card for Starbucks or something in there just to thank them for their time. Again, I'm differentiating myself, guys. Nobody else is doing this, right? The one thing we always talk about for sale by owners, when they first hit the market, everybody's calling them. 2, 3 weeks down the road, 5 people are calling them. A month down the road, nobody's calling them, just you. It happens all the time, right? And the sellers will tell you that the phone's kind of going quiet. So differentiate yourself against the other agents that you're competing with. I always say take good notes. At the end of the day, you know, you might actually find a buyer for the property. I've had sellers ask me that before. Hey, Mark, let me ask you, why would you help me sell this yourself? And it's just something that I came up with an answer that it's just a canned response that I came up with. And, you know, it seems to resonate well with sellers. And I just say, hey, I'm pretty sure that if I can help you sell the home yourself, you'd be happy to give my name out to some other people, correct? And I always say, even if they're going to lie to you, they're going to say, yeah. Right. So it's just a positive way of responding to that, because I've had sellers ask me that, because I will call up and say, hey, what can I do for you? I know this is important to you to get the home sold. I know you're trying to save money. I respect that. Right. It's not cheap to sell a house, you know, and all I ever ask for when they ask me is, hey, look, my only ulterior motive is all I ever ask for is when you decide to look into other options, I'd love to be included in that process. That's it. So this is like the big thing. This is kind of what changed everything for me. And this kind of happened by accident. I used to call all of my sellers that I had when I had Lars, and many of you probably remember the days when you carried 15, 20, 25 listings at a time. So you had a lot of nurtures that you had to do. And one of the things that I promise to this day, I still promise every one of my listings that I take is they will get a follow-up call from me every single Friday, where I deduct $500 from the commission. So that's something I promise all of my sellers. So every Friday, I was trying to make my Fridays pretty easy. So I would time block these blocks to call all of my sellers, fill them in on what we're working on and the game plan moving forward. And a lot of times I would get done these calls and I would think of, what else should I be doing here on a Friday? And I just started contacting my wannabe sellers, people that I wanted, whether it was expireds or FSBOs. I was contacting these people and I just started using this time to follow up. And what changed for me is I would actually call a for sale by owner, whatever random day it popped up. I found a new one on a Wednesday and I would call him and then I would just put something in my CRM to call him back in a week or two. Right. And it was very random times that I was always following up. I was very diligent with following up, but it was always random. And what accidentally happened is when I would do my Friday follow up with my sellers, I turned that into FSBO Friday, where I was calling every for sale by owner every week. And remember, before I didn't ask the seller if I can follow up. So there was nobody shutting me down. They were getting a call from me, whether they asked for it or not. And what I quickly realized within just a few weeks is because I was calling on the same day and often in the same time block during the week, every week, these sellers all started to recognize that. And I would get responses like, my wife and I want to sit down with you. We can only figure if you're this diligent without our listing, I can only imagine how you're going to be with the listing. Right. And it really just resonated with me that people are actually recognizing that there's consistency here. There's actually a specific day that I actually follow up. I can't tell you how many sellers would actually laugh when I called and they'd say, I knew it was you all the time. Every single Friday. And the cool thing is, even if you don't get them, it's a time saver if you don't get them, because you're just going to leave them a voicemail, but you're always going to remind them, hey, Lars, hey, it's Mark. Sorry, I didn't catch you live here. I just wanted to do my Friday follow up with you, like I do every week. And I just wanted to see if the property was still for sale. And if anybody had asked you any questions you weren't sure how to answer, or if you need any materials, just let me know. And that was it. But they heard from me every Friday until they were ready to list. And that was really what changed the entire game for me, because once I had several for sale by owners in my CRM and they were getting Friday follow-ups every single week, that's when referrals started to come. And that's when one by one, each one would pop off and ask me to come over and list a property. And I had that over every other agent that they were interviewing. Even if they decided it was still a smart move to interview a few agents, I could drop that on at the listing appointment. Did any other agents contact you every single Friday? Because that's actually part of my listing presentation too. You're going to get the same service after the property is listed. So that's basically the system in a nutshell. I always say you got to be yourself. Like any other script out there, you can't constantly have it hanging in front of you. You just have to internalize that. I gave you basically 2 quick scripts, right? I showed you how to just kind of defer the seller's, anger when you first call or wanting to get off the phone. I showed you how to do that. And if you just internalize that and make it your own and just stand up when you're making these calls, sound personable, sound excited, excited to hear more information about their property, I'm telling you, it's going to change for everybody. And again, if there's people here that have been a little reluctant to get on the phone because they're not sure how to do it, this is definitely a way that will ease your stress about calling these people, because most of them are really great people. I'm going to tell you, if I had to name my top 10 clients of all time, I know at least 2 of them, if not 3 of them or 4, might be FSBOs. I would have never met them. They weren't referrals and they weren't leads from the internet. They were literally FSBOs that I just became really close friends with because they were great people.
That's awesome. And my approach was never, I never, it's not in my personality. Like, I'm going to extract this appointment from you in this call, no matter what. Like, it's just not not how I roll. So this is, if you literally go out there and every FSBO, your job is to help them get what they want. By default, you will do a lot of FSBO business, right? That's essentially the whole attitude, posture, and you'll build a database of like off-market properties. So you could probably use this in your script with buyers, right? Remember the Proctor script? Like, hey, I've got a list of builder closeouts and off-market properties. We can just sit for 10 minutes in the office and I can get you access to that. So these are technically the market is the MLS in our opinion, and these are just off-market properties,
Mhm.
right? So a good real estate agent should know the inventory anyway. Let me any questions, get in the chat, and any questions. Mark, this was awesome. Just awesome.
Thank you.
Great information. Yeah, so Mark's last comment to Joe's point was, if same exact actually it was a question. Thank you for sharing. When you offered to do the paperwork and for the 1 to 1.5%, how do you document that arrangement so you're compliant with your MLS?
You don't have to put in MLS. It's going to be a private sale off MLS. So you just do a broker fee agreement. Each state should have a broker fee agreement. So I would just sign that with the seller that he's going to pay me X%. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to facilitate. Now, the safe way to do it, not that I'm not your broker, I'm not going to tell you the legal of it, but the safe way to do it is probably list yourself as a dual agent on that document, on that paperwork, or however your state allows you to do it, transaction licensee. But I've gotten paid dozens and dozens and dozens of times just to do paperwork, because a lot of sellers, can be successful selling it, but then they're like, uh-oh, I'm not sure what to do now. They can
Yeah.
hire an attorney to do it, but we know attorneys don't always get off their butt or leave their office. And sometimes as real estate agents, we know there's other stuff that needs to be done with
Yeah.
townships and some other things. So yeah, you make that offer. Hey, if you do sell the property yourself and you need somebody to do the paperwork or facilitate the transaction, title companies, conveyancing for the seller, things like that, I can facilitate that as well for a fee.
Yeah, awesome. And this document was posted in the chat here. It will be posted if you're part of Real Estate B School, it'll be in the toolbox. So you guys will have access to it. And it's the same mentality, like, Mark sharing his best stuff. It's that same, like if you're just MO in the world, is you're going to help as many. What's the Ziglar?
Yeah.
If
In
you
order to
help
get what
enough,
you want, help enough people get what they want.
yeah. So this is the heart of a servant around that sort of that sort of MO. So really, really good. So I don't know, Red X, Land Voice, Vulcan, everyone has thoughts on, some people love Vulcan, say the data's the best. I think it's a little bit of legwork outside of the data feeds anyway, so I like Red X for the platform, and it's but any advice on or thoughts on any of that, Mark?
No, I used Vortex, which is Red X, for years. I did run into a point where I think they were trying to add more value, but it just complicated. Instead of everybody having one, maybe two numbers attached, like each person had like 6, 7 numbers attached, and you're calling people just telling you it's the wrong number, and it's not their fault. I mean, they're just pulling this from a large database. They're trying to give you as much info as possible, but um, I will say I do not like to feed the beast or use it, but Zillow will have accurate information because the sellers are actually posting it there themselves typically. I want to share one other funny thing, guys. This is your competition right now. I just listed, and I won't go into the details. It's like a family matter where my mother-in-law had to go into assisted living. And if you know how that works, when they have no money, the state takes everything. So I listed my mother-in-law's condo. I say listed, but I put it up for sale by owner, which is, funny as a real estate agent. So, but I put it on Zillow, thinking that if I can make extra money, I'd be able to give some money out to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, make a little extra and give it to them because they're not going to see anything from the sale. And I put it up for about 2 weeks, and I won't take time to find it, but I'm telling you, this is what new agents are doing. And some of these agents were on fairly large teams, so this is what the team leaders are teaching them. They are literally, I got bombarded by texts. Is this the seller of X? And I would say, yes, I'm a real estate agent with this company, and I wanted to see if you would be willing to talk to me about listing opportunities. That was
Oh,
the text. And I would get dozens of these. And I literally was just sitting there laughing, like, is this how you're being trained? I mean, literally this, nobody has figured out how to buy or sell a property with the click of a button. You're not going to list a property with a text. So pick up the phone, even if you have a little bit of reservation about it, pick up the phone and use the script that I just gave you.
I had a strategy session yesterday with a guy that literally he just got pitched a system. It hasn't been proven in real estate yet, but he convinced me that's going to work, where they generate the lead and they set the listing appointment on your calendar. And I'm like, I will bet you all the money I have that that doesn't work. I'm like, did you talk to somebody, a real estate agent that it's working for, that's been with them for longer than a year? He's like, no, they haven't done it in real estate yet. I'm like, I promise you the dynamics of our industry are different. It is not generate 1,000 leads and you can set 10 listing appointments. That's not the world that we live in. There's some sweat equity. So a little bit of additional effort is going to have you guys winning at this.
Do we
Can
have
you
any
touch?
questions from those people? I know Ryan had chimed in and Augustine.
Yeah, do not call registry. There's no issue because they're literally putting their name out on the internet. It's not a do not call issue, right? Because they're for sale by owner. They're advertising most likely their cell phone number, everyone. So Augustine says he's had wrong numbers, but he set buyer consultations from calling the wrong number. So you never know who you're going to get on the phone.
Awesome.
My plus leads. So Brandon and Augustine, anything to add here? Brandon does 35% of his business via FSBOs, uses my plus leads. I've never heard of my plus leads, but you can sync right into CRM and automate it. So there's probably some cool stuff. We're generally technology agnostic. So the whole point is that you guys are going to commit to FSBOs as a lead gen lever and do the work necessary to make it a significant part of your business. If you cannot make that commitment right now, don't make the commitment, right? But if this would fit my personality perfectly, and I have no problem making these calls because I'm just going to help FSBOs win. And if I can get a commission out of it, great. If I don't get a commission, it just fits my personality. So Augustine and Brandon, any comments to add here?
Really, the only thing I do differently from what Mark was explaining is sometimes when I'm leaving a voicemail, if let's just say the FSBO's name is Mark and I'm leaving a voicemail, instead of leaving a voicemail and instead of the voicemail saying you've reached 970 blah blah blah, leave a voicemail after the tone, if it says, hey, this is Mark, leave me a voicemail, and I have confirmation it's Mark, I send him a text message instead of sending a voicemail. But
Yeah,
that's it.
But in the text, you're not leaving that lame text that Mark just said.
I'm leaving it super vague. I'm like, hey, this is
Yeah.
15. Give me a call back. I don't tell them I'm a realtor.
Yeah, right. You just want to get into a conversation with someone. Yeah, whatever it takes to not tip them off.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brandon, anything add?
Yeah,
there's
hold on. Here we go. Can y'all see me yet?
I can hear you.
Yeah, my approach is a little different. I have like more of an aggressive approach. When I first started doing FSBOs, I would do like, what do they call it? The preview appointments and just try to do everything I can to get in the house. Because I would want to see what their personality is like. I've never done a FSBO before, so I kind of recommend that to newer agents that are just starting out because their energy is a little bit different than like an expired or another type of resource like that. Once I got comfortable just having conversations with FSBOs, I started kind of going more for the appointment. So I wouldn't go over there unless it was an actual listing appointment. I developed a script that I use. I can share it to you guys as well, but 1 out of 10 FSBOs that I use with this script that I developed, I will book a listing appointment with. It's pretty more aggressive. I'm trying to close them probably 3 to 4 times and have objection handlers on there as well. And I just kind of figured them out and I've had a lot of success with FSBOs. I'm not doing a whole lot right now. Just I've kind of switched to more expires as I'm getting bombarded with those right now. But when I am hitting FSBOs, I'm listing 1 to 2 a month, I would say.
That's awesome.
Definitely share it. I can share it in Game Changers.
And then as far as like follow up, if I can't get a listing appointment booked with them, I'm calling them every Monday, every Friday. On Mondays, I'll say, hey, just want to see if you were able to get your home sold over the weekend. Me and my team actually got 2 contracts on our listings this weekend. The market's crazy right now. And then they'll be like, why didn't my home sell? It kind of gets them thinking.
Good.
And then I'm calling them twice a week. I was just following up with them once a week, but some other agent would come and beat me to it. So I switched it to twice a week to try to get them. At least in my market, they go pretty quickly. I would say within 2 weeks, 90% are listing with an agent. So they go pretty fast in my area. I also send text messages. I don't try to book the appointment through text. I just say, hey, this is Brandon. I'm a local real estate agent. I have some questions about your home. Can I call you here shortly? I'm just trying to get them on the phone through text if they don't answer. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to book the appointment via text or anything like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just don't take me wrong. Like I said, there's always more, whatever way you're comfortable doing.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with text, communicating through text. But anybody that tells me that they're not having luck with FSBOs or expireds, and then I
Right.
find out that's all they do is text,
Yeah, exactly.
where you give away too much information in a text, and that's a problem we can solve because.
Okay.
You may still run into a little bit of an issue just saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I have, do you have time for a phone call? It just gives them an opportunity to say no. You may just want to phrase that a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because look, we're all salespeople, right? Don't forget this is a sales business, right? You got to get on the phone and talk to people. I imagine everybody on this call, there's 82 people on the call. I imagine everybody is really good when they're belly to belly with people.
Right.
Right. So get in front of people, get them on the phone and just be you. I mean, you're going to win more times than you lose.
One thing Joe said here, yeah. So the whole point, Joe, is to go into whatever data sources. If paid gets you started, you will want to go into or have an admin go into the different data sources and make sure that your FSBO list is up to date. And a little bit of effort goes a long way. It's not hard to find FSBOs, right? So definitely do that. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Sohail, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm curious. I did the sorry. I didn't do the Hosprat system, but I had a friend that did a long time ago who I met in Tom Ferry back in like 2013 or maybe 2012 even. And I think he had a smart seller program for FSBOs.
Yeah, I'm going to upload that into the folder for you.
And I just wanted to say I used it and it worked really well. Because most of the time, I think what's been stated here is accurate. If you use common sense and just kind of take a blank sheet of paper and just write out if you were selling your home, just think like what you would want and the approach that you would want, and just deliver the same thing to the people that are selling themselves. Haas's information and what Mark's given you here truly works, because I think it's okay to go an aggressive approach, but I think you also have to kind of know when to back off, and through asking questions, understand what the person's trying to accomplish. And Mark, do you have a multi-step approach to it? I think you said that. Yeah.
Well, remember, it's always by feel. So I don't go into every one like, hey, my FSBO approach is a 7-step program. If I can turn that into 1 step and a listing appointment today, I'm always looking for that opportunity. So it's not, I'm agreeing with, the other people that have gotten on here and said, hey, there's a little bit more of aggressive approach. Remember, everybody I talk to, I'm always going to say, hey, Sohail, let me ask you, how long do you think you're going to do this before you look into other options? I'm always going to ask that question on the very first call. And I'm going to gauge their interest. Some people are so totally honest. Well, you know what? My wife's really getting on my case because she wanted to list a property 2 weeks ago, and I'm the one that keeps dragging my feet on it. They're going to give you honest answers.
Yeah.
So it's just, to me, that's a better way to word it than when are you going to hire an agent? Because most of these people just, for sale by owner is clearly stated, I'm going to do this myself.
So I was taught, but the script that I was taught never made sense to me. And that's, I'm doing a survey. I'm sure some of you have heard that. But I kind of agree with Mark. I go in and the first thing I say is, look, I'm a real estate broker. I'm sure you're getting bombarded with brokers, and respectfully, I don't want to waste your time. May I ask you a question? And that drops their defense mechanism. So what Mark's teaching you, it's they're dropping their defense. So when you say like, listen, I'm not trying to take the listing, I just want some more information. That's what you're doing. You're dropping their defense mechanism so that you can get further on the conversation. So I just want to say, I think what Mark's taught us here is absolute pure value, and everybody should practice it, become really good at it, and utilize it.
Amazing. All right, everybody, we are at the hour. Mark, this was awesome. Appreciate you sharing it with us. I've been looking forward to this call for 4 weeks. So yeah, everyone unmute yourself and give a little hoot and a holler and clap your hands for
Yeah.
Mark Giosa.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brandon.
So amazing.
Thank
So
you.
amazing. Great job, man.
Mark,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Augustine, Sohail,
Lars,
all
do you
you
have
guys.
that script?
Yeah, we posted it. It'll be posted in B School and Game Changers, and it's also in the thread here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys. Much love. We'll see you next week.
Adios.